The exploration ship moved slowly through the dark space of the Helix Nebula. Commander X stood at the front window, watching the stars pass by like tiny lights in an endless ocean. His ship, the Quiet Dawn, had been traveling for 6 months now. They were searching for new planets, new resources, new life. So far, they had found nothing but empty rocks and dead worlds. X was old for a. His gray skin had grown pale with age, and his 4 eyes did not see as clearly as they once did. But his mind was still sharp. He had explored more planets than any other commander in the fleet. He had seen wonders that most of his people could only dream about. And yet, in all his years, he had never seen anything that truly surprised him. That was about to change. "Commander," his science officer called out. Her name was, and she was young, eager, and very good at her job. "I am picking up something strange." X walked over to her station. "What is it?" "A signal coming from the 3rd planet in this system." 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of confusion among the. "It is artificial. Someone built something that is sending this signal." X felt his heart beat faster. "Show me." The screen displayed the planet. It was small, rocky, and covered in thick clouds. According to their records, no intelligent species had ever visited this system. The planet should have been empty. But the signal was real. It repeated every 30 seconds, a pattern, a message. "Can you understand it?" X asked. Shook her head. "It does not match any language in our database. It is not. It is not from any of the 12 known species in the Galactic Council." X stared at the screen for a long moment. In his 40 years of exploration, he had discovered many things: ancient ruins, dead civilizations, planets that had once held life but now held only dust. But he had never found a living signal from an unknown species. "Take us closer," he ordered. The Quiet Dawn changed course and moved toward the planet. As they got closer, their sensors picked up more details. The air was thin and filled with toxic gases. The ground was unstable, shaking with constant earthquakes. The wildlife, what little they could detect, seemed aggressive and dangerous. No species should be able to live here, and yet the signal continued. When they broke through the thick clouds, X saw it, a city, or what remained of one. The buildings were tall but crumbling. The streets were empty and overgrown with strange plants. Everything looked old, abandoned, forgotten. But the signal was coming from somewhere inside. "Commander," whispered, "look at the architecture, the buildings, the way they are designed." X looked more closely. The structures were angular, practical, built for beings that walked on 2 legs. They were not built by any species he knew. Then found something else. Half buried in the dirt, covered by 300 years of decay, was a ship. A massive ship, broken and dead, but still recognizable. "I am reading the markings on the hull," said, her voice shaking. "It is written in a language from our historical archives, a dead language. Commander, this ship belongs to a species called humans." X felt cold. He knew about humans. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans, though few had ever met one. They were a young species, new to space travel. They had sent out colony ships centuries ago, trying to spread across the stars. Most of those ships had been lost. The humans who remained on their home world had eventually joined the Galactic Council, but they were few in number and kept to themselves. This ship, the name painted on its side read Eternal Dawn, had been one of those lost colony ships. It had carried 800 humans into the unknown. It had never been heard from again. Until now. "The signal," X said slowly. "It is a distress call. They crashed here 300 years ago." "Yes, Commander, but that is not possible. The planet is hostile. The air is poison. The ground shakes constantly. 800 humans could not survive here for 300 years. They should all be dead." X looked at the ruined city, at the broken ship, at the signal that kept repeating over and over like a heartbeat that refused to stop. "And yet," he said quietly, "someone is still sending that signal." He made his decision quickly. Prepare a landing team. We go down to the surface. Looked at him with fear in her eyes. Commander, the atmosphere is toxic. We will need full protective suits. And the wildlife. I know the risks, X interrupted. But if there are survivors down there, if humans have somehow lived on this world for 3 centuries, then we need to know how. Prepare the team. As his crew rushed to follow his orders, X stood alone at the window, watching the ruined city below. He had explored 100 worlds. He had seen species rise and fall. He thought he understood the universe and its rules. But humans, he remembered, had a reputation. They were stubborn. They were unpredictable. They did not follow the rules. Whatever he found down there, he knew it would change everything he believed. The landing shuttle launched from the quiet dawn and descended toward the planet's surface. The clouds swallowed them whole, and for a moment there was nothing but darkness. Then they broke through, and X saw the city up close for the first time. The buildings were even more damaged than they had appeared from orbit. Walls had collapsed. Roads had cracked open. Nature had taken back almost everything. But in the center of the city, near the wreckage of the eternal dawn, a single light was blinking. Someone was waiting for them. The landing shuttle touched down in what had once been a large open square. Dust and ash rose into the air as the engines powered down. X checked his protective suit one final time and then opened the door. The air outside was thick and yellow. Even through his helmet he could smell something burning. The ground beneath his feet was cracked and uneven. In the distance, he could hear strange sounds, like animals calling to each other in the ruins. His team of 5 soldiers followed him out. They carried weapons, but X had ordered them not to fire unless attacked. He did not want to start a war with whoever was sending that signal. They walked toward the blinking light. It came from a small metal box sitting on a pile of rubble. The box was old and rusted, but it was clearly still working. Someone had maintained it. Someone had kept it alive for 300 years. "Hello," X called out. His voice sounded strange in the heavy air. "We received your signal. We are from the Galactic Council. We come in peace." For a long moment, nothing happened. The wind blew through the empty streets. The strange animal sounds continued in the distance. Then the ground opened. X stepped back in surprise as a section of the cracked road lifted up like a door. Below it was a staircase, leading down into darkness, and standing at the top of that staircase was a human. She was old, very old. Her hair was white like snow, and her face was covered in deep lines. But her eyes were bright and sharp, and she stood straight and tall despite her age. She wore simple clothes made from rough fabric, and around her neck hung a small metal symbol that X did not recognize. Behind her, more humans appeared. Young ones, old ones, men and women and children. They climbed up from the underground, dozens of them, then hundreds. They looked at them with curiosity but no fear. X had expected bones. He had expected ghosts. Instead, he found life. "I am," the old woman said. Her voice was calm and steady. "I am the elder of this settlement. We have been waiting for someone to find us for a very long time." X did not know what to say. His mind was trying to understand what he was seeing. These humans should not be alive. Everything he knew about biology, about survival, said that they should have died generations ago. "How many of you are there?" he finally asked. 2,412, answered. "We count every person. Every life matters here." A young man stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with dark hair and serious eyes. "My name is," he said. "I speak your language. I learned it from the old records on our ship. I can help translate if Elder's words are difficult for you." X shook his head. "I understand her, I just do not understand how this is possible. Your ship crashed 300 years ago. This planet is hostile. The air is poison. How did you survive?" Smiled, it was a small smile, tired but proud. "Come with us, I will show you." She turned and walked down the stairs into the darkness. X followed her and his team followed him. The other humans made room for them, watching with curious eyes. The underground city was massive. Tunnels stretched in every direction, lit by small lights that glowed with a soft yellow color. The walls were made of stone and metal, clearly dug by hand over many years. Rooms branched off from the main tunnel, filled with beds, tables, tools, and people. When the eternal dawn crashed, there were 800 of us, explained as they walked. The ship was destroyed. Most of our technology was lost. We had nothing but our hands and our minds. She led them into a large room filled with plants. Green things grew from the walls, from the floor, from containers made of old metal. The air here was cleaner, easier to breathe. The surface was too dangerous, continued. The air burned our lungs, the creatures attacked us. The earthquakes destroyed everything we tried to build, so we went underground, we dug, we built, we survived. X looked around in amazement. But the air down here should still be toxic. The poison comes from the planet itself. Nodded, it is, or it was. Our first generation suffered greatly. Many died, but some lived. And those who lived had children who could breathe a little easier. And those children had children who could breathe easier still. X stopped walking. You adapted, you changed your own bodies. We had no choice, said quietly. The planet would not change for us, so we changed for it. They continued deeper into the underground city. X saw workshops where people built tools from scrap metal. He saw schools where children learned to read and write. He saw hospitals where doctors treated the sick and injured with medicines made from local plants. Everything was simple, everything was handmade, but everything worked. Your colony ship carried advanced technology, X said. Computers, machines, medical equipment. What happened to it? Most of it was destroyed in the crash, answered. What survived we used until it broke. Now we make our own tools, our own medicines, our own future. She stopped in front of a large stone wall. Carved into the stone were thousands of names, row after row, stretching from floor to ceiling. These are our dead, said softly. Everyone who has died since the crash, we remember them all. X read some of the names. Next to each one was a small symbol. Some had flames, some had leaves, some had stars. What do the symbols mean? He asked. How they died, replied. Fire means they died testing new ways to survive. Leaves means they died trying to grow food. Stars means they died exploring the surface. She touched one of the names gently. My mother is here. She died when I was young. She was testing a new type of plant to see if it was safe to eat. It was not. X felt something he had not felt in a long time. Respect. Deep, genuine respect. You did not just survive, he said slowly. You sacrificed, generation after generation. You died so that your children could live. Looked at him with those bright, sharp eyes. That is what humans do, Commander. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight and we suffer and we die, but we never stop trying. She smiled again, that same tired, proud smile. We refused to die, and so we lived. X spent many days in the underground city. He watched the humans live their lives. He studied their history. He tried to understand how they had done the impossible. The more he learned, the more amazed he became, and the more disturbed. One morning, a young woman named came to guide him through the agricultural section. She was an engineer, responsible for the machines that helped grow food. She was cheerful and friendly, but there was something hard in her eyes, something that had seen too much death. This is where we grow most of our food, explained, walking through rows of strange plants. The leaves were blue and purple, not green like X had expected. These plants did not exist when our ancestors crashed here. We created them. Created them? X asked. Nodded. The plants on this planet were poison. Every single one. If you ate them, you would die. But our ancestors did not give up. They studied the plants. They experimented. They crossed different types together again and again for 7 generations. She picked a fruit from one of the plants. It was round and orange, about the size of her fist. This is called a now. It is delicious and safe to eat. But 300 years ago, its ancestor plant would kill a grown man in 3 minutes. X stared at the fruit. How many people died to create this? Smile faded. 43. Their names are on the wall in the Hall of Names. We remember every one of them. She put the fruit back on the plant. In the early days, there was no way to test if something was safe except to eat it. Someone had to be first. Someone had to take the risk. And they volunteered, X asked. Always, no one was ever forced. The volunteers knew they might die. They did it anyway so their children would not have to starve. They walked further into the agricultural section. X saw tanks of water filled with strange fish. He saw insects being raised in glass containers. He saw mushrooms growing on the walls in careful patterns. Every food source you see here cost lives, said quietly. The fish killed 11 people before we learned how to prepare them safely. The insects killed 7. Even the water had to be filtered through rocks for 3 generations before it stopped making people sick. X shook his head slowly. His people, had traveled the stars for thousands of years. When they found a hostile planet, they simply moved on to a better one. They had never faced a situation where they had no choice but to adapt or die. Why did you not try to leave? He asked. Your ship was destroyed, but you could have sent signals. You could have waited for rescue. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. We did send signals. For the first 100 years, we sent signals every day. No one came. Eventually, we stopped waiting. She looked at X with those hard eyes. We realized that no one was coming to save us. If we wanted to live, we had to save ourselves. Later that day, X visited the medical center. It was deep underground, in a section of tunnels that was cleaner and quieter than the rest. A doctor named met him at the entrance. Was middle-aged, with short black hair and gentle hands. She had been a doctor for 30 years, trained by her mother, who had been trained by her grandmother. Medical knowledge in this colony was passed down through families like a precious treasure. I want to show you something, said. Something that will help you understand what we have become. She led him into a room where several children were playing. They looked healthy and happy, running around and laughing. But something about them seemed different. X could not immediately say what it was. Watch them breathe, said. X watched. The children breathed slowly and deeply, their chests rising and falling in a steady rhythm. They did not cough. They did not struggle. They breathed the underground air as easily as if it were pure oxygen. The air down here still has traces of poison, explained. Not enough to kill quickly, but enough to damage lungs over time. The first generation suffered terribly. Many died young from lung disease. She smiled at the children. But we learned. We noticed that some people handled the air better than others. Those people had more children, and their children had more children. Generation after generation, we became stronger. You bred yourselves for survival, X said. Yes, not with machines or technology, just with careful choices. The people who could survive had children with others who could survive. Slowly, over 12 generations, we changed. She pointed to one of the children, a little girl with bright eyes and dark hair. That child can breathe air that would have killed her ancestors in an hour. Her lungs are different. Her blood carries oxygen more efficiently. She is still human, but she is also more. X felt a chill run through him. He had studied many species. He had seen evolution work over millions of years. But he had never seen a species change itself so quickly, so deliberately. This should not be possible, he said. 12 generations is nothing. Evolution takes thousands of years. Shook her head. Evolution takes as long as it needs to take. When the choice is change or die, you would be surprised how fast things can happen. That night, X could not sleep. He lay in the small room the humans had given him and stared at the ceiling. His mind kept turning over everything he had seen. They were an old species. They had built great cities, explored countless worlds, developed technology that seemed like magic, but they had never truly struggled. When problems arose, they solved them with machines and science. They had never had to sacrifice their own bodies, their own children, their own future, just to survive one more day. The humans had done all of that, and they had done it without complaining, without giving up, without losing hope. X thought about the names on the wall, thousands of names, each one a person who had died so that others could live. For the first time in his long life, X felt small, not because the humans were stronger or smarter than his people, but because they had a kind of courage that his people had never needed. They had looked death in the face, and they had refused to blink. When X sent his report to the Galactic Council, the response came faster than he expected. Within 2 days, he received new orders directly from the High Council itself. The most powerful leaders in the galaxy had read his report and made a decision. The humans must be rescued. Counselor, the oldest and most respected member of the High Council, sent a personal message. Her voice was kind but firm. Commander X, what you have found is remarkable, but it is also tragic. These humans have suffered for 300 years because we did not know they were there. Now that we know, we must help them. We will send ships to transport them to a proper colony world. They will have clean air, safe food, advanced medicine. Their suffering will end. X listened to the message in silence. He knew the council meant well. They saw the humans as victims who needed to be saved. They did not understand what he had learned in his weeks among the colonists. But orders were orders. He called a meeting with the settlement's leaders in their great hall. The hall was the largest room in the underground city. Its walls were covered with paintings made by generations of colonists, showing their history from the crash to the present day. The ceiling was high, carved from solid rock by hand. In the center of the room was a long table where the Council of 7 sat. Elder sat at the head of the table. Her white hair was tied back and she wore her best clothes, simple but clean. To her right sat the settlement coordinator, a stern man who kept track of every resource and every person. To her left sat the head agriculturalist, who had spent her entire life learning to grow food in impossible conditions. The other 4 council members were there as well. All of them old, all of them wise, all of them survivors. X stood before them and explained the council's offer. He told them about the ships that would come. He described the paradise worlds where they could live, planets with blue skies and clean water and soil that grew food without poison. He promised them technology that could cure diseases overnight, machines that could do the work of 100 hands. Your children will never know hunger, he said. Your elderly will live long and comfortable lives. Your suffering will finally end. When he finished speaking, the room was silent. The council members looked at each other. Some whispered quietly, but there was no excitement in their eyes, no relief. Spoke first. His voice was deep and serious. You are asking us to leave our home. X nodded. I am offering you a better home, a safer home. Safe, repeated the word slowly, as if tasting it. We have not been safe for 300 years. We do not know what safe means anymore. Then let me show you, X said. Let me take you to worlds where you do not have to fight every day just to survive, where your children can play outside without fear, where you can grow old without worrying about poison or earthquakes or monsters. Elder raised her hand. The room fell silent. Commander X, she said, her voice calm and measured. I have listened to your offer. I understand that you and your council believe you are helping us. I am grateful for your kindness. She paused, looking at him with those bright, sharp eyes. But we must refuse. X felt his heart sink. He had expected this, but he had hoped he was wrong. May I ask why? Stood up slowly. She was old and her body was tired, but there was still strength in her movements. "Look at these walls," she said, pointing to the paintings around the room. "Every picture tells a story. The crash, the first winter, the plague that killed half our people in the second generation, the earthquake that destroyed our first underground city, the fire that took our food stores and almost ended us forever." She walked along the wall, touching each painting gently. "For 300 years we have fought this world. We have bled for it. We have died for it. And slowly, generation by generation, we have won." She turned to face X. "My grandmother could not breathe the air outside for more than 10 minutes. My mother could survive for an hour. I can survive for 3 hours. My granddaughter can survive for an entire day." Her voice grew stronger. "In 200 more years, our descendants will walk freely on the surface. They will build cities under the open sky. They will tame this world that tried so hard to kill us, and they will do it because we never gave up, because we refused to run away." Stood up beside her. "If we leave now, everything our ancestors suffered for will mean nothing. Every death will have been wasted. Every sacrifice will have been pointless." Nodded. "We are not prisoners here, Commander. We are conquerors. We just have not finished conquering yet." X tried one more time. "But your children, the elderly, the sick, they do not have to suffer. We can help them now." Smiled sadly. "Our children do not see suffering, Commander. They see purpose. They know that their lives matter because they are part of something bigger than themselves. They are links in a chain that stretches back 300 years and forward for 300 more." She sat back down, looking tired but certain. "We thank you for your offer. We know you meant it with kindness. But this is our home. This is our fight, and we will not abandon it." The council voted. The decision was unanimous. They would stay. That night X walked alone through the underground tunnels. He passed workshops and gardens and sleeping quarters. He heard children laughing and adults talking. He saw people living their lives, not in fear but in hope. He thought about his own people, though. They had everything: technology, comfort, safety. But did they have what these humans had? Did they have purpose? He did not know the answer, and that troubled him more than anything else he had discovered on this strange, hostile world. The humans had refused paradise. They had chosen hardship, and somehow, watching them, X felt like they had made the right choice. 50 years passed. X was old now, older than any should be. His gray skin had turned almost white, and his 4 eyes had grown dim. He spent most of his days in a comfortable home on the capital world, surrounded by books and memories. But he never forgot the humans. Every year he submitted a request to the Galactic Council, asking for permission to return to the lost colony. And every year the Council refused. They had bigger concerns, they said, more important matters to deal with. The humans had made their choice, and the galaxy had moved on. But X never moved on. He could not. Finally, on the 50th anniversary of his first visit, the Council granted his request. Perhaps they felt sorry for the old commander. Perhaps they were curious to know if the humans had finally died. Whatever the reason, they gave him a small ship and permission to make one final journey. The trip took 3 months. X spent most of it sleeping and dreaming about the underground city. He wondered what he would find. Had the humans survived? Had they grown? Or had the planet finally won? When his ship entered the system, he immediately knew something had changed. The first thing he noticed was the satellites. 50 years ago, there had been nothing in orbit around the planet. Now, there were dozens of small objects circling it. Communication satellites, weather monitors, simple things but impossible for a society that had been living in tunnels with handmade tools. The second thing he noticed was the surface. 50 years ago, the planet had been brown and gray, covered in toxic clouds and dead soil. Now there were patches of green, small at first but growing larger as his ship flew closer. Farms, forests, life. X felt his old hearts beating faster. He landed his ship in the same square where he had landed 50 years before, but the square was different now. The crumbling buildings had been cleared away. New structures stood in their place, built from stone and metal and glass. The air was still thick and yellow, but it seemed lighter somehow, cleaner. And there were people everywhere. Not hiding underground, not struggling to survive, walking freely through the streets, shopping at markets, talking with friends. Children played in the open air, running and laughing without protective masks. X stepped out of his ship and felt the wind on his face. It still burned a little, but not as much as before. A young woman approached him. She was tall and strong, with dark hair and bright eyes. She moved with confidence as if she owned the world, which X realized she did. "Commander X," she said, smiling, "we have been expecting you. You know who I am." "Of course. My grandmother told me stories about you. She said you were the first outsider to understand what we were trying to do." X felt a lump in his throat. "Your grandmother." The woman's smile faded slightly. She passed away 20 years ago, peacefully in her sleep. She was 113 years old. "I am sorry." "Do not be. She lived a full life. She saw the first farms planted on the surface. She saw the first generation of children who could breathe outside without help. She died knowing that we had one." The woman extended her hand. "My name is, I am the elder of this settlement now. Will you let me show you what we have built?" X took her hand. It was warm and strong. "Please," he said. Led him through the city. It had grown beyond anything X had imagined. The underground tunnels were still there, but they were no longer homes. They had been converted into storage areas, museums, and memorial halls. The living now lived above ground. 12,000 people, said as they walked. 5 times as many as when you first visited, and we are still growing. She showed him the farms that stretched toward the horizon, filled with plants that would have killed their ancestors. She showed him the factories where they built machines and tools, some from old designs, some invented entirely new. She showed him the schools where children learned science and history and art. And then she took him to the edge of the city, to a ridge overlooking a valley. In that valley, a new city was being built. Not underground, not hidden. A city under the open sky, with towers reaching toward the clouds and streets filled with light. Thousands of people worked on it, carrying materials, building walls, laying foundations. In another 50 years, that city will be home to 100,000 people, said. In another 100 years, we will have cities all over this planet. And in another 200 years. She pointed to the sky. We will have ships. We have already begun training pilots. We found the engines of the eternal dawn and we are rebuilding them. Our engineers have been studying the technology for 3 generations. When we are ready, we will return to the stars. X stared at the city being built below, at the people working together, at the future taking shape before his eyes. The council believed you would die, he said quietly. Every model predicted it, every calculation. They thought they were being kind when they offered to save you. Laughed, it was a warm sound full of life. They did not understand. No one understands until they see it for themselves. She turned to face him, her eyes burning with the same fire he had seen in her grandmother's eyes 50 years ago. We are human, Commander. We do not die when we are supposed to. We do not stop when logic says we should. We adapt. We endure. We overcome. She gestured to the valley below, to the city, to the future. Your people have traveled the stars for thousands of years, but you have never met a species like us. We do not ask the universe for permission to live. She smiled, fierce and proud. We take it. X stayed on the planet for 1 week. He visited the Hall of Names and saw how many new names had been added. He met the children of people he had known 50 years ago. He ate food that had been poisoned 3 centuries before. And when he finally returned home, He wrote one last report to the Galactic Council. It was short, just a few lines, but it said everything that needed to be said. Regarding the human species, I have studied them for 50 years. I have watched them do the impossible over and over again. I have seen them turn death into life and suffering into strength, and I have only one recommendation for the Council. He paused, remembering bright eyes, remembering fierce smile, remembering all the names on the wall. Do not underestimate them. Do not challenge them. Do not try to predict what they can and cannot do. He finished the report with 3 words that would be remembered for 1,000 years. They have no limits. 3 months later, X died peacefully in his sleep. He was the oldest in recorded history, and his final report became required reading for every explorer, every scientist, and every leader in the Galactic Council. The humans, meanwhile, kept building. They finished their first starship 150 years after X's last visit. They named it the Eternal Dawn, after the ship that had brought their ancestors to that hostile world. And when they finally returned to the stars, they did not forget where they came from. They did not forget what they had overcome. They carried their history with them, written in their blood and their bones and their stubborn, unbreakable spirits. The galaxy would never be the same. The humans had arrived, and they had no intention of stopping.